Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Gulfport number FR101F, what they call a masonry tube anchor. You can sure see why they would call it that. We would call this a pipe anchor. I would probably want to call this, although a tube anchor, to me a pipe anchor connotates quite frankly, a heavier anchor in the sense of the pipe was traditionally a little bit thicker material, as was the strap. But regardless of that, this is a pipe anchor or an existing opening anchor or a tube anchor, but a pipe anchor is pretty typical terminology for this. A pipe anchor has a lot of things happening on it that we have to be aware of. So first of all, where are you going to use it? Well, you would use this in an environment where you're going to install a frame into which, as you tighten the screws down, assuming you're dealing with a flathead or dimple or countersunk application for a 3/8 by 6 or 4 or 5 inch or whatever length sleeve anchor, or a number 24 by 6 flathead wood screw, that as you tighten that anchor down, you're not going to crush the frame in. Now, that is almost always used when you have an existing masonry opening and you're going to drill the wall. Frame will go in place. You'll mark the wall. Frame will come out, and then you'll drill your holes. Frame back in, tighten the bolts down, and as you tighten, you won't crush the frame in because this tube or pipe is preventing the soffit of the frame from being crushed in. You can also use that in an application where you're using wood anchors. As you tighten those anchors, or I've seen people install frames with hex head lag bolts, with lag bolts or hex head machine screws and a lead anchor. And as they put that socket on there, you can certainly crush that frame in, and you don't want to do that. So that's where you're going to use this. Now, what needs to be understood about a pipe anchor? A pipe anchor is a pipe anchor, but it doesn't mean that this is going to work for your application. What you may or may not be able to notice is that the pipe is not in the exact center of the preparation. At least it doesn't appear to be to me, nor should it. Yeah, it is. It is indeed not, nor should it be, unless you need it to be. Okay, so let's talk about that first. First of all, this pipe anchor is intended for a 5 3/4 jam depth. That strap is going to be just shy on 5 3/4, and what you'll do is you'll lay the jam, if you're going to prep this, after you have what you'll do is you'll lay the jam down, you will put this in the throat of the frame, and you'll turn it so that these flanges are underneath the return. One thing that I like to do is to drill an 1/8 of an inch hole through the soffit of the frame so I know where to mark the location of the pipe. After I have it centered over the 1/8 of an inch hole, I'll slide it in, and then I will tack weld it, okay, on the outside corner, and then I'll turn the frame over and then do my dimpling or whatever I'm doing, assuming I'm doing it by hand. Now, you'll notice that when you put this in, it will either fit really nice or it will be like, wait a minute, that one leg seems too short, and that's because this is indeed not in the center of the unit. Edge of the side to the center looks like it's about 2 5/8, but from the other side, it's clearly closer to 2 7/8. That 1/4 inch difference is the fact, and it's really about 3/8, is that we're probably dealing with an unequal rabbet frame. This would be made for an unequal rabbet frame. And while equal rabbet frames are typical and common, I don't believe they're the most common. So be mindful that for all of a sudden we're dealing with 5 3/4. You can cut these shorter if you have a 4 3/4 frame, but you are definitely dealing with a unequal rabbet frame on this. Now, the other important dimension is, and we can kind of take this for granted, the dimension I'm about to show you should be about 2 9/16 or 2 1/2, right in that range. And that's going to be, about 2 1/2. That's because this will set down into the soffit, and that projection of the stop is 5/8, plus a 2 inch face profile. If you have something other than 2 inch, and you probably won't have something other than a 5/8 stop profile, even though you can, this anchor may not work, or you might need to modify it. So be mindful that when you're ordering a pipe anchor, what's the jam depth? That's 1. Equal or unequal rabbet? That's 2. What's my face dimension? That's 3. And is my stop projection 5/8? That's for sure 4. And all of those details need to be taken into account when you're ordering this material. Now, is this the absolute most common? Sure, because an unequal rabbet 5 3/4 is the most common frame there is, with a 2-inch face and a 5/8 projection on the stop. So I think you'd be in real good shape using this. This weighs 0.245 pounds, so just shy on a 1/4 inch. But I want to give you some dimensional, I want to tell you the thickness of this material. First of all, that flange is 1 3/4. That's a white coat galvanized steel that you see there. Okay? You want your frame to be reasonably corrosion resistant. Now, the flange is 0.064, so 16 gauge is what I would call this, very roughly. The diameter of the tube, or the thickness of the tube, is about the same. Okay, 0.065 with an outside diameter of 0.752. 0.752. Okay, so be mindful if you have needs for anchors outside of these dimensional properties. This may not be your anchor, and by all means reach out to us and we'll assist you with finding or having the manufacturer make the correct anchor. Let's switch to the screen view and do a little bit of additional information and some supporting documentation on the FR101F masonry tube anchor. Okay, so here is the anchor that we are looking at. Not a lot to say about this, but let's kind of expand where you're going to use this. If you've never used a pipe anchor in the past, you're going to have a cross section of your jamb that will ultimately look like this. Okay, that tube is going to fit underneath here. That metal strap is going to fit underneath here. Okay, and this is where your anchor head is, of course, going to sit. Well, forgive me, it'll actually, of course, protrude all the way in. But that's where that anchor is going to be fitting for us. Okay, and of course, again, unequal rabbet in this grotesque out-of-scale drawing, that's 1 15/16, and that's 1 9/16. That's unequal rabbet. The other way to go is to have equal rabbet where it's 1 15 on both sides of the frame. Very common. Now, why do some manufacturers create unequal rabbet? Well, back in the old days, what you would very typically see is the manufacturer have the logic where, well, if you want an 1 3/4 thick door, I'm going to put it here. And if you want me to make 1 3/8 doors, I'm going to put it here, because 1 3/8 doors do exist, and they were common, or more common certainly than they are now. So as a result of that, you can see why we need to have this tube not in the center or biased towards one side when it's an unequal frame. Now, you know, if you were to use this in an equal rabbet frame, what you're going to find is this portion is going to come right to the end here, and while you can make it work, it's not the right anchor. And then, of course, we are assuming that the 2-inch face profile exists and that the projection from the stop to here is 3/4. So you can see a lot goes into a pipe anchor. You know, we have to make sure that it's correct, and that's the bottom line. How you create that dimple, you can do that on a Dake press. I think a 4-ton Dake, D-A-K-E press would be really good for that. There was a fella in Ohio who had the die set for doing that. And that was obviously many years ago that we ordered that press. So I don't recall who that was, but you can get a die set for doing this. Also, allow me to show you a way that you can create that dimple. That is a tool that we don't sell often. Okay, just door tools. Without wasting too much, there it is. Frame dimpler kit. you can create the dimples in the frame using this kit with a large wrench. I have a video of the item as seen here that you can review. So if you needed to take it further than just, you're going to have to create that dimple in the frame somehow. Now, one way that we used to do it is we literally took a railroad spike and ground it down to a point. You need 3 things for this. You need your earplugs, you need a railroad spike ground down to a point, and you need a 4-pound mini sledge. After the anchor is in, you know what you have to do. Start hammering. So that will work too. It's not going to give you as clean of a finish as a tool for doing it, or a dake press with a positive and negative, or a die set. You really want the die set to do that, because that tube is not going to really prevent over crushing of this area right in here. Okay. The link to the manufacturer's page is awfully handy, because that will allow us to pull up not only all of the Gulfport products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the parts catalog. Now, the parts catalog is handy because it will allow us to review the FR101F, which is here, for 5 3/4 frames. They don't tell you it's unequal rabbet, but I'm telling you it is. They also have variations on these. You can get this for adjustable sizes, meaning if you want to have some to do bigger frames, or if you wanted to have some to do equal rabbet, you could use these as well. Okay. Existing masonry anchors, sometimes these are called butterfly anchors because they can literally be bent in a downward fashion. Lots of different anchors are included here. T-anchors, stud anchors, Z-anchors, wire anchors, yoke and strap anchors, base anchors, floor anchors, etc. I would very much recommend that you review this catalog because the name Gulfport is quite synonymous with accessories for hollow metal door and frame manufacturing. And if you are a manufacturer or a distributor, or you're a field tech, you're a locksmith, someone who does installation of hardware or reworking of doors and frames, there's absolutely going to be material in here that you'll want to be familiar with. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Now, the upside of this anchor is that, well, when you put the frames into the truck and you drive to the job site and unload the frames with the contractor, and then you leave and drive an hour to the next stop, there's no chance that you forgot the anchors because they're welded to the frame. Wire anchors, T-anchors, metal stud anchors, wood stud anchors, those can be forgotten. You walk out to the dock and why is that box sitting there? It's full of anchors. Oh my gosh, the driver forgot to take the anchors, or more likely the people loading the truck forgot to load them. So I like them for that reason. You can't forget them. And also, number 2, they're very effective. They will not crush the frame, and will give you the ability to really tighten that anchor. The downside of pipe anchors is that they're more expensive than other anchors. And in that Gulfport catalog, you will find the FR690 or the FR691, which is simply a less expensive version of this type of anchor. Is not necessarily going to as well prevent you from crushing the frame, but it will be less expensive. So you might want to review that. The name Gulfport, again, is synonymous with this type of material. If you have any questions on the Gulfport FR101F, unequal rabbet 5 3/4 pipe anchor, or masonry tube anchor, or any other Gulfport product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.